Corruption by P.K. Armstrong. Chapter 29. Sorensen's steel gray eyes narrowed, and a sound akin to a growl emanated from his throat. He put his phone down, slowly, calmly, and closed his eyes in an attempt to stamp down the rage that was building within him. Breathing in and out, he cleared his thoughts, the sound of an old-fashioned clock acting as a metronome. He didn't know why he was angry, he told himself. The text message only confirmed what he predicted would happen. Detective Christopher Roland was not sidetracked by his contrived distraction at the Science Museum. He opened his eyes and stared out the window before him in the great room of his family's ranch. The Sorensen lands had always been one of the largest farms in the county. They had flocks and had grown crops for a century. For generation after generation, they worked the land. But his father married a city girl who had different ideas. She had come to love the farm, especially the horses, after his father had taught her how to ride. So she decided to open up the ranch for horse riding instruction and a petting zoo. Many in the family had balked at the idea 20 years ago, but the community embraced it, and now the income earned from horse riding instruction and the petting zoo surpassed what was earned in the breeding and selling of livestock. Sitting in his chair, he could see the family lands stretched out before him. The great room was designed so that when the family assembled in the large room, they could see their inheritance from the tall windows and feel their connection to the land and all it meant to the generations before. Sorensen had never felt the connection. He had hated the early morning chores, the malodorous air, and obsessive dedication to land and family. If the farm suffered, they all suffered, and Sorensen had always resented the fact that he could never really shine in that setting. Any successes he had were claimed by all, even the weakest and the dumbest of the lot. He was still staring out the window when his odious cousin strolled in. Sorensen had always resented his cousin Teddy's dedication to the farm. Teddy had always thrown himself into his chores and often followed his grandfather and uncles around learning the family business. After he graduated from high school, he went to college, took veterinary science, and instead of opening his own practice, returned to the farm, a veterinarian. Cousin? Teddy nodded in Sorensen's direction and walked to a coffee pot that was always left on an old-fashioned sideboard. He poured himself a cup and then walked over and seated himself across from Sorensen. This is indeed a special occasion. It is, Sorensen replied, sounding bored. Yes, this is the second time you've been here in 5 weeks. Sorensen's face twitched ever so slightly. Is it? Yeah. Remember you were over at the office weeks ago asking me how to move those bees. Ah, Sorensen said. Yes, I'd forgotten. So did it work? What? The ketamine. Were you able to move the bees safely? I have to tell you, I was impressed you only wanted to knock them out. Some people just want to kill them, but bees are vital to our ecosystem. Yes, yes. Sorensen waved his hand as if to wave away the conversation. Yes, the ketamine worked perfectly. Good. Teddy sipped some more coffee. So did you hear the... Teddy kept talking for another 30 minutes, but Sorensen had stopped listening. Teddy only required an occasional grunt or nod to encourage him, and Sorensen had more important things to think about. Detective Christopher Roland was a problem. His sources told him that he was working the Simon Rain case, but was rarely seen in the office. When he was in the office, he was circumspect about how his case was going. His board he kept near his desk was empty, as if the case were already solved, but it was still open on the board in the captain's office. What was he up to? How close was he? After attending a gala last year, Sorensen had discovered how close Roland was to Angelica Dale. He pictured her for a moment. She was a beautiful woman. People stopped and took notice when she entered a room, but she never seemed to notice the attention she was garnering. It irked Sorensen. To have that kind of power over a room and not use it for anything was just stupid. It was the only way you got anywhere in life. Sorensen got where he was because he knew how to manipulate people to do what he wanted, and when they stopped doing what he wanted, he got rid of them. If he had a woman like Angelica Dale on his arm, he would be that much more powerful. After looking into things, it didn't take him long to figure out just whose brat that was she had taken under her wing. He knew about the relationship between Cindy Mailer and Stan Granger. It never really mattered to him, but Cindy's past and the fact they had a kid together was a little piece of knowledge he tucked away to be used at a later date. It didn't surprise him that he knew where the kid was, even if Stan didn't. But that is exactly why he knew they would never turn Detective Christopher Roland. He never could find anything to use against him. He went all the way back to his high school days and never even found a joyriding charge. But there was one thing he learned about Detective Roland. He never got close to anyone. His relationship with Angelica Dale intrigued him. He took a chance having the girl followed to see if there was a way to get close, but his guy was spotted too soon, and it amounted to nothing. They noted a day later that security at the school changed, and the girl was never alone outside of school grounds. Sorensen knew it hadn't moved Detective Roland to rethink his investigative track. He looked away from the picturesque scene and down at his phone once again. The picture he had received minutes ago of Stan Granger talking with Detective Roland in the police parking lot told him that it was time to get rid of Deputy Stan Granger.